Thanks for watching TYASuite ERP demo video. TYASuite Cloud ERP is an all-in-one solution to automate, streamline and digitalize your entire business processing. With integrated plug-and-play modules like procurement to pay and vendor management, inventory management, finance and accounting, sales management, TYASuite Cloud ERP can help you manage your business seamlessly. TYASuite ERP can be accessed from anywhere, any device, anytime. TYASuite is hosted on the world's most secure server of AWS, Amazon Web Services. With TYASuite ERP, you can manage and restrict users' access at lowest possible level in your company. You can define your customized user roles. For example, you can restrict access at department level or location level or individual process level. You can further restrict the user's activities like add, edit, view, download, delete, etc. for each screen. Users will be able to view work only on screens which they have access to. Now let us look at how the TYASuite supplier management software functions. You will type the URL provided for your company. Once you click on the URL, you will get the login page. By default, login page is for company user. If you need to log in as vendor, click on vendor login option. Fill the username and password and click on login button. If your organization is a group of multiple companies and you have subscribed to our multi-entity module, you will land on this multi-company dashboard, where you can select the company you want to enter and perform activities. If you have a single company, you will directly land to your company dashboard. The dashboard as shown here is customizable based on company requirement and the user role of the employee. The first set of cards shown here relates to pending activity for the user who has logged in. The second set of cards shown here relates to pending activity for the company locations the users will have access. The list of few pending activities cards is Purchase Requisition for my approval, Purchase Order for my approval, GRN for my approval, Invoice for my approval, Payments for my approval. The cards will change based on module subscribed for and the access given to the user. TYASuite Supplier Management Platform. Let's look at the supplier management process flow in TYASuite ERP. Create vendor login. Raise RFI, request for information, from vendor. Evaluate RFI response and approve RFI for vendors. Onboard vendors. Raise RFQ quotation request. Vendor quotation submission. Evaluate quotation. Request for revised quotation. Vendor submits revised quotation. Perform reverse bidding. Vendor participates in live bidding. Auto-select vendors. Finalize quotation and raise PO. Vendor accepts PO. Vendor initiates delivery. Receive goods services. Quality check service acceptance confirmation. Vendor adds their invoice. Company approves vendor invoices. Company intimates payment. Vendor payment auto-link to bank. Payment reference ID updates. Vendor dashboard gets updated. Real-time vendor reconciliations. Let's go into more detail on each process. Create vendor login. This function is available on the company side. Click on the Vendor Master menu or search the Vendor Master menu from the search box. Click on the Create Vendor Login. Temporary vendor ID will auto-generate. Fill the vendor name, email ID and mobile number of the vendor. Select the approver's name from drop-down. You can also configure as auto-approval for your company as per your internal policy. Click on Send button. The person whose name is selected as approver, he needs to go and approve the same. Once approved, an email will be sent to vendor with the link to log into vendor portal as temporary vendor. Vendor must need to submit the vendor form on the vendor portal and upload all the required documents. Once the vendor submits the vendor onboarding form, the same will come to company for approval of the vendor master. Raise RFI, request for information. Now let us look at RFI process. This function is available on the company side. Through RFI function, the company can seamlessly request pre-bidding information from the vendors. Vendors can submit the RFI information and company can evaluate to qualify the vendors for specific RFQ quotation. Click on RFI menu or search the same from search bar on the top. Click on the Add button to start new RFI process. You can fill RFI name and description. This can be anything based on the nature of RFI you are requesting. Example: you can name the RFI as RFI Demo. Then you can update the RFI start date and RFI end date. Vendors cannot submit the information prior to RFI start date and after RFI end date. You can update the responsible person name, email ID and mobile number in the RFI. You can select the vendors from drop-down to which you are planning to share the RFI. You can select multiple vendors at the same time. Then you can update the Add RFI activity list. You can update the requirement. You can select the field type of response you want vendor to select while responding. For example, you can select text box, number box, check box, date etc. as the field for information requested. Example: you can ask for numbers of employees and field type as numbers. You can select if this information is mandatory or optional. You can also define if you are expecting any mandatory attachment in response to this requirements. Through plus button, you can add unlimited numbers of information required from the vendor for any RFI. After this, you can update any details about this RFI. You can write or copy and paste any details you want to share to vendor for this RFI. Click on the Save button. Based on company policy, this will be sent to approver for approving the RFI. You can also set zero approval. In that case, it will be auto-approved. Once approved or auto-approved, RFI will be sent to vendor. Vendor will receive an email for the RFI as well as notification on their vendor portal. On this RFI dashboard, the company can perform below functions against the RFI. View history: here you can see view the history of call changes done on this RFI. Edit RFI: here you can edit the RFI. View RFI: here you can view the RFI. Pause RFI: here you can pause the RFI, and vendor will not be able to do anything on this RFI. Stop RFI: here you can pre-close the RFI. Once you have clicked on Stop button, you cannot change the status again to active. Delete RFI: here you can delete this RFI. Now, let us look at the vendor portal. Vendor will click on RFI by vendor menu. On this dashboard, vendor can see all the RFI where he has submitted the response or he needs to submit the response. Vendor will be able to perform below functions against each RFI. Reply: by clicking on the plus icon, the vendor can enter the RFI response screen and reply to the RFI. Modify the response: by click on the pencil icon, the vendor can modify the already submitted response. Modification can be done till the RFI submission time is valid. View: by clicking on the view icon, the vendor can view the RFI data. Let us look at the RFI submission screen on vendor portal. Click on the plus icon against the RFI you want to submit the response for. Inside the screen, vendor can read all details of the RFI and answer to all queries asked by the company. If the company has asked any information and have requested to upload the documents mandatory, the vendor must upload the required documents. Once all required information is updated, the vendor can click on the Submit button. Once submitted, the RFI response will be sent to the company and can be seen by the company in RFI response menu. Now let us look at how the company can see the RFI response by the vendor. Let us come back to company portal. Click on the RFI response menu. On this dashboard, you will be able to see the status of the RFI, numbers of vendors RFI was sent, and numbers of vendors has already responded. You can click on the View button to go inside the Review the vendor responses and qualify the vendor for RFQ. Inside the screen, you will be able to review the response given by each vendor, download the attachments submitted by the vendor. Once you are OK, you can select the specific vendor and click on Make RFI Qualified to Selected Vendor button. Once selected, the vendor status will move to RFI Qualified. Now let us look at the RFQ, or quotation process. This function is available on the company side. Through RFQ function, the company can seamlessly request quotation from the vendors. Quotation can be requested to multiple vendors in single click. Vendors can submit the quotation or RFQ response and company can review and select the vendors for further processing. Click on RFQ menu or search the same from search bar on the top. Click on the Add button to start new RFQ or quotation request. You can fill RFQ name and description. This can be anything based on the nature of RFQ you are requesting. Example: You can name the RFQ as Demo RFQ. Then you can update the RFQ start date and time as well as RFQ end date and time. Vendors cannot submit the bid prior to RFQ start date and time and after RFQ end date and time. Further, you can update the bid open date and time. If you have selected any bid open date and time, then no one in the company will be able to open and see the bid before the defined date and time. This will ensure complete transparency in your quotation process and eliminate all kinds of influence and procurement frauds. You can update the name, email ID and number of the person responsible for this RFQ. Many times, the vendors may have some queries on the RFQ where they may need to talk to someone in your company. You can select the vendors from drop-down to which you are planning to share the RFQ. You can select multiple vendors at the same time. You can also select the vendor based on RFI qualified vendors for a particular RFQ. You can update your bill to location and ship to location, which will help the vendors to decide the RFQ pricing more accurately. You can select the persons who can open this bid. In that case, only a selected person can open the bid or RFQ on the predefined date and time. Then you can update the Add RFQ activity list. You can update the requirement. You can select the field type of response you want vendor to select while responding. For example, you can select text box, number box, check box, date etc. as the field for information requested. Example: you can ask for numbers of employees and field type as numbers. You can select if this information is mandatory or optional. You can also define if you are expecting any mandatory attachment in response to this requirements. Through plus button, you can add unlimited numbers of information required from the vendor for any RFQ. After this, you can update any details about this RFQ. You can write or copy and paste any details you want to share to vendor for this RFQ. You can also upload detailed RFQ documents if the company has any specific detailed requirement for the RFQ. RFQ or quotation can be raised for a pre-approved PR, purchase requisition, or new items, non-PR items. In this demo video, we are not covering how to raise a PR in TYASuite ERP. Please refer demo video on TYASuite Procurement to Pay module to know on how to raise a PR. TYASuite ERP can be easily integrated with ERP software like SAP and Oracle. In that case, if you wish to transfer your PR from SAP and Oracle, the same can also be done. Select the item selection type from either the Product Master or an approved PR. If you select the Product Master, then click on Add button to add products for this RFQ quotation. You can add multiple products. If you have many products, the same can also be imported through Excel. If you wish to select an approved PR to raise a quotation request, you click Select PR Radio button and PR List drop-down will open. You can select the PR you want to raise a quotation for. You will have an option to select multiple PR and send the same to vendor through single quotation request. Based on company approval policy, approver name will come in the drop-down. You can select the approver name and click on Submit button. You can also set zero approval. In that case, it will be auto-approved. Once approved or auto-approved, RFQ will be sent to all selected vendors. Vendor will receive an email for the RFQ, as well as notification on their vendor portal. On this RFQ dashboard, the company can perform below functions against the RFQ. View history. Here you can see the history of call changes done on this RFQ. Edit RFQ. Here you can edit the RFQ. View RFQ. Here you can view the RFQ. Pause RFQ. Here you can pause the RFQ and vendor will not be able to do anything on this RFQ. Stop RFQ. Here you can pre-close the RFQ. Once you have clicked on Stop button, you cannot change the status again to active. Delete RFQ. Here you can delete this RFQ. Now, let us look at the vendor portal. Vendor will click on RFQ by vendor menu. On this dashboard, vendor can see all the RFQ where they have submitted the response or they need to submit the response. Vendor will be able to perform below functions against each RFQ. Reply by clicking on the plus icon. The vendor can enter the RFQ response screen and reply to the RFQ. RFQ response can be submitted only till RFQ end date and time. System will auto-lock the vendor from submission once the RFQ date and time reaches. Modify the response by click on the pencil icon. The vendor can modify the already submitted response. Modification can be done till the RFQ submission time is valid. View by clicking on the View icon, the vendor can view the RFQ data. Let us look at the RFQ submission screen. Click on the plus icon against the RFQ you want to submit the response for. Inside the screen, vendor can read all details of the RFQ and answer to all queries asked by the company. If the company has asked any information and have requested to upload the documents mandatory, the vendor must upload the required documents. Vendor can also download the RFQ documents if any for their reading and confirmation. Once all required information and the price for each line item is filled, the vendor can click on the Submit button. Once submitted, the RFQ response will be sent to the company and can be seen by the company in RFQ response menu. Now let us look at how the company can see the RFQ response by the vendor. Let us come back to Company Portal. Click on the RFQ response menu. On this dashboard, you will be able to see the status of the RFQ, numbers of vendors RFQ was sent, and numbers of vendors has already responded to the RFQ. You can click on the View button to go inside and review all the quotations and select the preferred quotation. With TYASuite Quotation Management, you can seamlessly evaluate all the quotations within seconds and finalize vendor rankings. TYASuite gives you flexibility to choose the quotation based on either L1, lowest bid, at the total RFQ level, or select the lowest vendor at each product level. All this can be done with a single click in no time, irrespective of the numbers of vendors and numbers of line item. If your company has significant numbers of quotations every month, TYASuite can save a significant amount of time of the procurement department with 100% transparency and guaranteed accuracy. TYASuite also gives you a flexibility of selecting other than lowest quotation on various quality parameters. In that case, you can select the manual selection option and select the vendor names manually. You can update the remarks why you have selected other than lowest quotation for approver review in future records. TYASuite also gives you flexibility to ask a revised quotation from vendors. In single click, you can send out message to vendors to submit the revised quotations. The vendor can log into vendor portal and update the quotations if they wish to revise the quotations. This will ensure that entire procurement process is automatically documented in the system. The companies can easily pass any and all kinds of audits for their procurement function. In TYASuite portal, in quotation comparison screen, the procurement team can also see the last 3 procurement price of each item for easy decision makings. You can also give a target price for each item while creating the RFQ and hide the same from vendors as per your requirements. The target price feature comes very handy in case where the company want to conduct a reverse bidding process through TYASuite platform. Once you have finalized the quotations, you can click on Assign Quotation. Once this is clicked, it will go to approver for approving the quotations. Approver can update the selection and out their remarks and approver the quotations. Once the quotation is approved, the procurement department can raise a purchase order to selected vendor. TYASuite gives flexibility of raising PO in single click from the approved quotation. For the purpose of this demo, we have selected Zero Approver, and hence, the procurement team can directly finalize the quotation and raise a PO through Assign Quotation and Raise PO button. In this demo video, we are not covering the demo for procurement to payment function after PO is raised. Please refer TYASuite Procurement to Payment demo video recording for below process. Raise and approve PO. GRN process. Quality check process. Add vendor invoice process. Vendor payment process. Let us look at how reverse bidding function will work in TYASuite Vendor Management Platform. TYASuite Reverse Bidding Platform. Once RFQ is released, the vendors will submit their quotations. On the bid open date and time, the company can click on Show Rank to Vendors on RFQ Response Dashboard. Once this is enabled, vendor can see the live rankings of the bid and their bid position. Vendor cannot see the price of other vendors, they will only be able to see their price rankings against each item. Vendors can update the prices offered till the time bid is closed. The company can also show the target price to each vendors to enable to vendor to bid lower prices. Through reverse live bidding process, the company can ensure their procurement cost is kept at a minimum. Reverse bidding process can save millions to the company from their procurement budget. This functionality comes inbuilt as part of TYASuite Vendor Management software. Through TYASuite Vendor Portal, vendors can perform below additional activities. Update their product catalog and price. Update their profiles. Accept purchase order. Intimate delivery of goods. View the receipt status of goods by the company. Check the status updates of the quality check process of the shipment. Add invoices directly on the portal. Add non-PO based invoices. Check the invoice approval status. Check the payment status. All the above functionality can be enabled and disabled by the company depends on the internal policy. Thanks a lot for your time and patience in watching the demo of TYASuite's vendor management software. Questions? Ask our expert if you shall have any queries or you have any unique requirements for your company, which is not covered in demo at info@tyasuite.com. If you would like to schedule personal demo, please reach out to our team at the above email ID. TYASuite is India's first integrated vendor management software. Made in India for India and global. Other TYASuite softwares: Procurement to payment software, Inventory management software, Asset management software, Sales management software, Production software, Finance and accounting software, Project management software, Compliance management software. TYASuite is world first plug and play ERP, where you can go live in your company in just 7 days. TYASuite is affordable, scalable and flexible ERP, and all kind of customizations are possible with TYASuite. Download detailed brochure from www.tyasuite.com.